I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to start off with a couple of announcements that were not on the agenda. The first one is from the Division of Wildlife Resources. We received a payment. You guys can't hear? My microphone's on. At least the light is. Maybe let's try that. Can you hear me now? Better? Let's try, how about that? I'm gonna have to get on the road crew for not doing a sound check. Is that better? No, still not? I'll look. White noise. Not that.
Test. There we go.
1, 2, 3. How's that?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you hear in the back now? We're all good. Perfect. Okay. What we wanted to talk about was two things. The first one is the Division of Wildlife Resources has received what they call PILT money. It's federal land that we can't receive tax dollars on. We've got a payment of $9,239.57 from them, and just want to acknowledge that publicly. The second bit of information too, and I'll let Mr. Jalen come and speak to that, is a little announcement on the VA clinic.
Thank you for allowing me this time at short notice. My name is David Jellen. I'm a four-year county resident and a 29-year service member before I retired. And veterans and veteran resources and getting them the help they need has been the focus since I retired. According to the U.S. Census, the most recent number being 2010, since there was not a veteran question in 2020, was there were 750 veterans in Carbon County. The Legion, the American Legion, and other veteran service groups estimate 1,800 veterans in our community based on the U.S. Census combined with state data of veterans' license plates, identification cards, and other tax relief and other programs. Approximately 2 years ago, the Veteran Affairs Clinic here in Price had over 400 veterans using the clinic on a regular basis, a facility that everybody here worked 10 years to get here. However, as a result of personnel issues, closures, and remodeling, there are just now over 200 veterans using the newly remodeled and soon newly staffed clinic. They're going to have a grand reopening on March 3rd with a small ceremony and be here all the 3rd and the 4th to enroll veterans in the various programs in order to get medical care. And then they'll also have someone from the VBA, the benefits assistance, and that would include housing and employment and education. So it's not just a rededication of the building, but a rededication of effort to serve our community's veterans. The enrollment focus this time around will be on toxins. So from Agent Orange through the burn pits and their children that might have symptoms or illnesses from their parents. So it's a big push throughout as far as getting word to the veterans that assistance is coming, and hopefully it has a renewed effort and purpose for the veterans and they come back to the clinic. Thank you very much. Appreciate the time.
Yeah, thank you. And for those of you that don't know where the Veterans Clinic is, should pull this up quicker. It's on 189 South, 600 West, here in Price. So, the old Kmart. Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. On to item number 1, approval of the minutes. You all had a chance to review. Any questions?
I see no changes.
Same here. I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Item number 2 is the Super Service Award presented by Tina Grange.
Hello, Commissioners. I made it on time. I thought I was going to be late today, so I'm glad I made it. So Jody is a great asset to the Crosscut team. She has been part of the team since the day the store opened. She is always willing to work hard and complete any task at hand. She remembers her customers' drinks and favorite snacks before they even tell her their order. And I just want to give a special thank you to Jody Patrick with the Crosscut C Store for just being an amazing tourism ambassador and a great customer service representative of our area.
I'm good.
Okay, and she'll want to take your picture.
Oh, actually, I want to thank
Oh.
my best friend, best boss I had, Tony Basso, prior to me, and help her.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you, Jody.
Thank you.
Item number 3 is the 2022 Helpers Saturday Vibes End of Season Report. Allie Farnham,
Hi, thanks for having me.
you bet.
So it's that time of year again. We're gearing up for Helper Saturday Vibes, our third year in 2023. And just as we did last year, we love to report all of our statistics, demographics, and really all of our successes from 2022, as well as what we have to look forward to in this new year. So last year, we nearly doubled our attendance. Our first year in 2021, we had just about 7,000 estimated attendees. In 2022, we had 13,000, so just about doubled. We do collect all of our demographic information via a survey that our staff implements. So we ask people where they're coming from. We collect zip codes as well as where they're staying overnight. So we are able to collect some really exciting and interesting data from our events. One piece of information that I love is that 76% of the attendees that completed this survey were actually residing in Carbon County, with 24% of attendees residing outside of the area, which included outside of the state. We love to serve our Carbon and Emery County residents, and also are carving out a place for tourism and recreation in Helper for people to stop through. So we're excited about that. On our stage last year, we brought 20 bands over the course of 10 events. We featured a fundraiser, or gave the opportunity for a fundraiser at each of our events. We had a total of 6 fundraising campaigns last year. We had 19 nonprofits participate as vendors on the street. We also had 5 themes. We are bringing our themes back again this year, doing one a month. We're going to switch up a few, which I will get to later. In terms of our vendors, another number that I love to report is that we just about doubled in 2022 compared to 2021. So our first year, we had about 50 vendors on the street over the course of the season. And in 2022, we had 102. So we've been seeing exponential, really positive growth in the first 2 years, and we're hoping to keep that going this year. We had 7 Main Street Helper businesses participate with a booth on the street. We do provide free booth spaces for all Main Street businesses. We're really trying to create opportunities, not only in terms of staffing, but also for other businesses to participate and capitalize on this foot traffic on the street. We also had 13 food trucks last year. We did survey our vendors as well. This was a preliminary survey. We only had 36 folks participate at this point, but 72% of those vendors were coming from Carbon and Emery County. So once again, speaking to the opportunities that we're creating for people to take their hobby and bring it to the street and really have the entrepreneurial spirit of sharing their craft with individuals on Main Street. Our zero waste initiative is something that we're very proud of and that we're excited to continue in 2023. We have 6 zero waste stations, that's what we call them, throughout our event. There's compost through Helper Homegrown, which is located in Helper, recycling, and then everything through waste management. We also have a highly popular zero waste initiative at our bar program with reusable cups. And so last year we had 2 different cup offerings. Nothing was single use. It was all encouraged to reuse cups. Our stainless steel cups, which were available for purchase, could be brought back, and patrons were able to receive a $1 discount every time they brought that back. And we had 683 reuses of those stainless steel cups, which just demonstrates how we are able to divert waste from the waste stream and really encourage recycling and reuse in the county, as well as refillable water stations where people can actually bring a bottle and refill it, and just reducing the amount of plastic that we utilize at our events. A commitment to local. We support as many local businesses as we can. We had Helper and Utah Pride signs designed by Tommy Lasley of Ruckus, which is a youth nonprofit. We had our posters, rack cards, banners, and signage all designed by Barbara Warnock. She's a resident designer in Helper. Our merch printing and production was by Jana at Carbon Print and Design in Price. We also produced all of our banners at Sign Edge in Price as well. We work with Kenny Driggs of West Coast Show Support to provide beautiful lighting on the stage. We get all of our ice from the Clampers group on Main Street. We had a Castledale resident tie-dye shirts for us this year, and we also had some interactive art by Rudy Castro. So we are really trying to spread the love as much as we can and support as many local businesses to really trickle through the community and spread the love. On that note, we had our 2022 team. We had a total of 30 part-time and seasonal staff. Each individual was and is a resident of Carbon and Emery County. We increased our minimum wage to $15 an hour. In 2021, it was $12 an hour, so that was a $3 increase across the board. And we also had our advisory committee, which was made up of 6 Carbon County residents as well. And we are on track to have 30 part-time jobs again this year. So we're excited about that. Marketing dollars spent locally. We're, of course, celebrating our sponsors and really making sure that this event is known by residents through the newspaper, radio, sponsorships, our website, signage and print materials. Social media has been a powerful tool as well. Last year, we did launch a brand new website. In the 1 year since its inception, we've had over 13,000 page views, and some of those views are from across the globe, which is astounding to see. It's really people traveling through on the I-6 corridor between Salt Lake and Moab and seeing our signs, pulling off, participating, and then that is translating into these web impressions. We, of course, had a wonderful group of sponsors in 2022. Many of these sponsors are coming back again this year, and we're also making room for some new sponsors as well. So special thanks to all of these sponsors, in particular, the Carbon Corridor. We did receive grant funding last year, so thank you for that. Oh, sorry. These are, I don't know what these slides are. Positive feedback. We got a lot of positive feedback from 2022. We always like to share that with individuals. People just really considering it a fun and inclusive event. Nice to see the town alive, just loving what Helper Vibes is bringing to Main Street. So really celebrating that positive feedback. And we have some exciting changes in 2023. With all the positive feedback, we also receive really constructive feedback that helps us grow and progress and continue to develop. So this year, we're very proud to announce that we're bringing all new bands. just really fresh energy. A lot of the bands are younger bands coming from Salt Lake. So we're also hoping that will help draw more people into the area and just coming down the I-6 corridor and staying for the weekend. We have a continued partnership with Helper City. We've been guaranteed our dates for the next 2 years. So you'll see us this year and in 2024 before we renew again. We have a commitment to hire 1 local law enforcement officer to be at each event, just for added safety and security. We're going to be adding a mocktail, which is a non-alcoholic craft beverage, to our beverage program, just making sure that there are offerings for everyone and continuing to truly be a family-friendly event. We're also enhancing our kids' activities. We're going to have a specific area with an interactive, participatory activity for children. And the goal here is to just really have a wider age group of children that are being served by these activities. And we have brought on Ashley Vincent. She is the art teacher at Sally Morrow, and she will be facilitating these activities throughout the summer. We've also created a new administrative assistant position with a lovely woman named Joelle Amaya, so she will be joining the team this year. More to look forward to. We are going to keep a couple of our themes, and we're going to add some new themes as well. We're going to have a pie themed event, Latin Nights and Country Western. We're also going to have upgraded monitoring at the entrances. A lot of Helper residents had expressed concern about alcohol coming in and out. So we will have staff at all of the entrances, really just helping keep people safe and regulate the consumption of beverages on the street. We are also striving to be a plastic-free event this year. We do not allow and will not offer the sale of any plastic items. That's bottled water, beverages. It's all going to be in aluminum cans. A little factoid is that aluminum can actually be recycled infinite amount of times, and there are recycling services here in Carbon County. We're going to be working with Howas, so we'll be bringing all of our aluminum recycling there after each event. We're also going to have a new shirt designed by a really awesome individual. He designs all of the national park posters. He goes by the Retro Ranger. Our advisory committee for 2023, we have 5 Carbon County members that we have onboarded for this year. We're really excited. Their intention is really going to be bringing creative ideas to Main Street. So each of our advisory committee members has applied with an idea, something they're excited to share, and they will be able to bring those ideas to life, which we believe will continue to diversify the offerings that we have on Main Street. And just a little bit of the bigger picture, myself and Kim, who was not able to be here tonight, we did attend the 2022 Utah Tourism Conference. In 2021, there was a Utah Residents Opinion Survey that was implemented across the state regarding tourism. And these are a little bit of snapshots of things that we found extremely interesting from the tourism conference. So the yellow columns are really highlighted from Carbon and Emery County. So the graph on the left is demonstrating that 64% of Carbon and Emery residents think it's important to invest in our arts and culture. 53% of Carbon and Emery residents think that tourism supports businesses in their community. And 63% of residents think that tourism is important to the local economy. And so taking this information, we are really trying to increase the tourism in the area, as well as offerings for individuals who do live here in Carbon County, continuing to provide a free, family-friendly event for people near or far to participate in. And hopefully that will continue to support the local businesses who do have brick and mortars here in Carbon County. So thank you for your support. We're looking forward to another successful year. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you. Appreciate the report, the update. Sounds like it's been successful, and just hopefully continues on that way.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks for coming
Thank
down.
you. Item number 4, Planning Commission Recognition Award for Richard Tatton. Todd?
So we just wanted to take a couple of minutes and thank Richard for his service. He was on the Planning Commission for 42 years. He was very helpful to me as a new individual in the Planning and Zoning Department. He helped the Planning Commission through some very difficult decisions. He's attended thousands of hours of meetings through all the subdivisions and conditional uses and zone changes that we have to deal with. And we couldn't have done it without him. So this year was, at the end of December was his last meeting. And so for the first time in 42 years, he hasn't been on our board to help shepherd us along. So it's been a little bit of a weird feeling at the first couple of meetings of the year without Richard. But we just wanted to give him a plaque and thank him for his service, and a gift card to a restaurant and some golfing, since you'll have a little bit more time on Tuesdays to go do that. So thanks for your service and helping us all these years.
Thank you, Todd. I'd like to say a couple things.
Absolutely.
How old were you when I went on the planning and zoning board?
Let's see. I was in 6th
42
grade.
years ago.
Yeah.
So that lets you know I'm too old to be doing this sort of thing. I do thank all the commissioners, going back to Guido Raquelli and people like that support all the people of the county, and congratulations to the commissioners for the staff that you have that supports Todd with all the things he does in that department. So it's been a pleasure working with most of you. And I say that with levity. So thank you guys, and thank you for this. And keep up the good work and take care of Todd. And if you get a chance, could you give him a bonus of a razor?
Yeah. Well, Richard, I probably was young, and I was probably the one that was riding around the neighborhood there since we lived close growing up. You've always been an outstanding person. Your family's amazing. Some of that didn't fall quite all the way to Nick, but we're working on it. But thank you. 40 plus years ago, Carbon County was a lot different place, and appreciate your guidance, your perseverance to stay on that board and help kind of shape it to what it is today. So just want to say thank you. I know you've done things around the school district as well, and your heart's just enormous, and just appreciate who you are and what you've done for our community. So thank you.
Can I
Absolutely.
mention something? The county has several boards that we have in place that help give us as commissioners direction, and they're invaluable in helping us stay on course. So you've been on the board for a long, long time, and it shows that sometimes not too many people step forward to help. There's plenty that want to step forward and complain, few who come with ideas and willingness to serve and try to help this make Carbon County a better place, and you've certainly done that. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Okay, we'll move on to item number 5. Consideration and possible approval of access agreement with UDOT for Martin to Carbonville Road on Highway 6. Chris Hall.
Chris Hall with Utah Department of Transportation. Thank you for the time, commissioners, for us to present this. I'm joined here with Jared Beard, our traffic and operations engineer, and Kirk Thornock, he's our region deputy director. And I'm the planning manager for Region 4 for UDOT. So we want to take some time to present. Is it not coming through?
No, it's on. It's just,
You stick up.
it's all on. It's just, I'm not sure if it's connected yet.
It was working when I tested it earlier. I'm not sure what happened.
It's on.
Yeah, he's got lecture now. See anything on your side, Seth? Looks like we're all on here.
I don't know.
Your computer is turned on, right?
Yeah. Yep. I was just gonna say, I wonder if I need to lock it and then open it up again.
You want, you could just go by memory and just describe all the pictures and
Yeah, just describe everything.
Yeah.
I guess while we're waiting for this to pull up again, we recently completed a study. So UDOT's is what's called a solutions development process, where we select key corridors throughout the state and we try and get a vision or what the future of that road might look like. And this process is fairly new to UDOT, and it really heavily emphasizes what the locals see for that community. Because we understand as UDOT that we have a lot of state roads through a lot of communities, a lot of counties, and they all have different appeals or different preferences and different traffic needs. So we try and make sure that through this process, we pull in the local ideals and vision of what they want their community to look like and how transportation can help that process rather than hinder it. So through this process, we had a lot of a stakeholder group that included people from the county, from Helper City, because it's mostly in those two areas. We also pulled in a little bit from Price because we're kind of bordering on there. But we wanted to make sure we got a good cross-section of the county where this corridor impacts everyone. And it has a much bigger impact than outside the county too, because it's a major US highway that connects regional areas. And the kind of the idea of this is, I wish this would pull up so I can walk you through it. We put a lot of effort into this study. We went through it and came up with a visioning goals. And the visioning goals were analyze existing and protected traffic safety data. Okay, that's what they did, visioning statement, sorry. So the vision statement was improve safety and mobility for local, regional, and freight travel through corridor access management while considering local access needs. So that's what we really tried to do. We came up with some possible solutions for the future. And we've had several public outreaches to try and get comments. I know it's been around the community and a lot of people are talking about it. This study looks at the possible future for the next 30 years. Nothing in this study is set or funded. This is just something that we looked at that would say, okay, looking at what the community would like to see. And the biggest comment we heard was that there's safety issues on US 6 through the community that need to be addressed. So we tried to really focus on how can we keep and access what is there existingly while dealing with any safety concerns that the community has. So that was, I would say, one of the big focuses of the study. The other one was just like we said, maintaining that access to make sure that locals have access to the community without having a transportation barrier of a major highway, separating the community or bisecting the community. We analyzed a lot of the safety, a lot of the crashes. Overall, compared to other state routes, there wasn't a glaring problem with accidents. There have been 2 recent fatalities in the past 5 years, which is always concerning. We always like to avoid those at all cost. So that is kind of the purpose of the study. We've come up with an outline. We can send I sent the link to the study. We did a GIS story map that has all this information in it. And so this can be reviewed. It's to the public. It's on the UDOT webpage, our GIS page, so anybody from the public can access it. We can send a link out so you can take a deeper look at it. And it's just goes over a lot of this information. Now I don't have it up in front of me, so I don't know where I'm going with it. So
Well, Barry's here to save the day, so.
hopefully we can get it so you can see what I'm saying.
So could we attach that link possibly to our own website?
Yes.
It was working on the one before this.
Yeah, I tested before to make sure it was working. It was earlier, so I'm not sure what happened. But anyways, we came up with the outcome of the study essentially was to provide an access management agreement that UDOT, we'd like UDOT, Carbon County, and Helper City to sign, saying that there's some key intersections that UDOT has slated for future improvements, and that any future intersections or accesses would have limited movements or not signalized in the future. Because what we found is that we have to balance that freight corridor or mobility through the community on this major highway, along with the access internally. And the biggest issue with that is that the more intersections there are, the slower the through traffic is, and the more safety concerns we have. So limiting access to the highway to major intersections that we've identified for future improvements is a key aspect in our toolbox of making sure that we maintain that mobility and also the freight movements. Some of the locations that we've identified for improvements are Poplar Street and is it Spring Glen Road, I believe.
Yes, Spring Glen Road.
And the two options there are either a roundabout or a signal. So this is the solutions process, that there's pros and cons to either of those options. From a safety perspective and for through movement, the roundabouts work better. Signals are feasible that will handle our projected traffic on the route, but we do see a lot more crashes at signals. So it's always a concern planning for signals in the future, especially on high-speed roads like US 6, because there's always higher serious injury and fatal crashes at signals. So safety-wise, we're leaning towards roundabouts, but nothing's set. That'll be decided at a future point. But that is our preliminary thought, is that for safety purposes and just throughput, roundabouts are kind of the prioritized one, but that's not said that it has to be that way. The other key aspect through there too is the center median barrier from Poplar Street down to Spring Glen, which essentially restrict left turn movements. As part of that, we would install some turnaround points, U-turn areas that would have a break in that barrier, so people, if they're trying to access there, could have a kind of an intermediate place to turn around in between Poplar and Spring Glen, because it's quite a distance to go that far out of travel and turn around if you need to access a different property. So we'd have 1 to 2 turnarounds in there that would be finalized location. We have some ideas of where they would fit, but depending on how development happens before this happens would kind of dictate where those turnarounds would be. I think those are kind of the highlights there. If I had a way to show this to, we have it kind of concepted out on a map, but I'm not able to show those. So you'll just have to look at that story map later and let us know if you have any questions or concerns with them. But in essence, we've drafted an agreement. It's an access management agreement that I've provided. So if you guys have any questions on that, and I guess we're requesting that the county approve it for signing.
Getting signs of life here. been hijacked here now, so let's see if we can get this connected. So basically, you've come up with proposed, have you studied then and got information? Or is this what you're proposing to do moving forward?
So the agreement is basically just to restrict intersection improvements on US 6 to these studied locations that we've identified as key connector points for future improvements. But as far as like more design or more information on the alternatives we haven't studied, we would do later as funding becomes available, as they become a project that's funded.
So at this point, these are just what is suggested, not what will happen.
Yes.
Okay.
So, and we use these studies. I can walk through these alternatives here. So this is the first alternative of the roundabout. So it comes up here. It's proposing, this isn't in Helper, but proposing some access change here at Martin Road. Essentially restricting some turn movements there to try and minimize the conflict points of that intersection. And then all the way here on the north end of the project, there's two accesses close together, which is always a safety concern. So the proposal is to close this north access and making it all accesses off this 1T intersection and access over here. There was some concerns for the public that we've noted that if this access is changed and closed in order to facilitate RVs and other trailers that come through here, we'll probably need to partner with the city to say we need to improve this turn to accommodate the businesses and all the uses on this road. So nothing will happen here without some partnering with Helper City to make some improvements to make sure that there will be minimal impacts to the area. And then, as you can see, this is just kind of a proposed of what the roundabout might look like as a layout that would keep the two lanes movement. This is a really big benefit to safety. We do intersection evaluations, and we look at different evaluation types, and we haven't done one here, but on other intersections, we anticipate 90% crash reduction with roundabouts versus different intersection types. So there's a huge safety benefit. And also roundabouts tend to slow traffic, and that was also one of the big concerns we heard from the public, is that they feel like people speed along US 6 through there, and it's an unsafe condition. Roundabouts force the traffic to slow down, and having one on either end of the community really helps keep that speed more manageable, and it's less likely that we'll have people speeding through there. So it's a great asset to help control the speed limit through there as well. So, and then this is kind of, you can see that there's a median barrier proposed through here, all the way through this section. Just scrolling through. Zoom that a little bit so I can go a little faster. But I believe, where was the location of the possible? I think right here is where we would propose to put the U-turns in there so people can turn around as a halfway point between the two intersections. And once again, another roundabout here and on the other end. And that is kind of what's proposed. And then the final change is changing this access for Carbonville Road. It would limit the ability to turn left and go southbound on US 6 or eastbound. So that would be one change at that intersection. It would still allow westbound or northbound on US 6 from Carbonville Road. So that was one of the proposed changes there.
Would that allow southbound to turn left, or it restricts all left-hand turns?
No, southbound would be able to turn left there.
Right. Very good.
And then after that, it kind of becomes a divided highway. We didn't have any recommendations past that point. And then this is kind of the same thing. We're proposing the similar changes on the north end. The difference between the second alternative is possible signals at these locations.
So I see this, both the last two versions don't show the changes currently with the new gas station being added to Helper, that merge lane. How would you plan for that?
So the merge lane would stay the same for the gas station. Besides,
So-
when we put the median barrier in, it would restrict that left turn into Maverick and out of Maverick.
So if somebody came in from up north, as we call it, went into Maverick, they would have to go back towards the golf course or towards Price and then flip around and head back north. Same as if they're heading north on Highway 6, they wouldn't be able to turn into the Maverick either
Yes.
with a barrier in the middle. With the roundabouts, they could, or was the roundabouts going to have a barrier?
The roundabouts would be there as a U-turn point, and a much safer way to turn around with that median barrier there.
But there'd still be the barrier.
Yes, there's still be a barrier, yes. Both solutions, we're proposing a barrier there, just because of the high-speed road and the nature of it. It improves safety so much on roads like this that we're proposing it. And once again, it's something in the future that we know is going to need to happen with the traffic projections we see. When that need is, we don't know for sure. It's just something that we want to let the community know that that's what we're envisioning, is to make sure that the community is safe and the traffic on this road is safe as possible. But there's no set plans of when that's going to happen. It's just sometime in the future, as traffic projections grow, we foresee a need for a median barrier through this section.
Are there currently any roundabouts on state highways in Utah?
Yes. We recently installed one in Enoch on SR 130. Yeah, Jared may know more about what roundabouts we have. We have lots of plans.
Yeah, Jared Beard, I'm the UDOT Traffic Operations Engineer for Region 4. We have installed several recently. Like Chris said, we recently installed one in Enoch City on a fairly high-speed road. It was 55 miles an hour coming into the intersection, so a high-speed road. A little simpler than this. It's a single-lane roundabout, so fairly simple operation. We had 3 fatalities at that location over the previous several years. Since we put that in about a year and a half ago, we have had 1 minor property damage crash at that intersection. Typically, we would see about 8 to 10 crashes every year at that intersection. So they do an extremely good job of reducing crashes and especially improving safety. We do have another one that we recently installed down at the entrance, the intersection near Bryce Canyon of Highway 63 and Highway 12. Again, another high-speed road, 65 mile an hour road there, if I remember correctly. So again, it's functioning very well, creates a very nice gateway to Bryce Canyon at that intersection. We also have installed one down in Monument Valley, right on the Utah-Arizona border. So yes, we've been putting them in many locations. We have another one planned down on Highway 9 at the east entrance to Zion National Park. So yes, we are putting them in many locations, and they're being very successful.
Are any of those 2-lane?
We haven't done a 2-lane on a high speed like this yet on any of our roads that I'm aware of. We have looked at other states. Arizona has several of these on 2-lane divided highways, very similar to what we're proposing here. Several people at the region have driven through those and say they're working very well. So this is something, like I say, it's down the road a ways. There's a lot of research and continued I guess vetting of the process, vetting of the viability through our system. Like Chris said, we're not sure if this would be 5 years, 10 years, 15 years or more down the road when this would actually be warranted and go in. But we want to get that vision out there that to really find ways to improve safety, we're going to have to start looking at different options. We put a lot of signals in across the state. We still have a lot of crashes at signals just due to people who don't run the red light and other issues. I mean, they just seem to have issues at signals. So roundabouts are that option that can improve safety.
Sorry. Would you put one of these roundabouts on I-70?
No, and the reason why is I-70 is a no access facility. So I-70 doesn't allow business access or any other type of access. except at interchanges. So that's the way the interstates have been developed, is no access except at interchanges. So no one of these would not be considered on I-70.
How come they weren't put on Bangerter then?
Not my region. Kirk, any ideas? I can't really speak to why not. Bangerter's, there is a certain threshold traffic number wise where roundabouts don't function as well. And that's something we'd have to monitor with Highway 6 as we go forward, and as we look at these alternatives in the future, we would be looking very closely at the traffic numbers. There is a threshold where they stop functioning well, a certain traffic volume that triggers that. Bangerter, the number of vehicles on Bangerter is so high, I don't think you could get one to work well.
So a question on that. The ADT for Highway 6 has been studied, but at what points and what times? Because on a holiday weekend when the Wasatch Front is down here recreating and then all leave at the same time to try and go home over the mountain, one accident can cause the traffic to back up for miles in just a matter of minutes. Would it allow for effective movement on those big holiday weekends? Has that been studied?
I won't say that we've studied it in detail. We did run some a little bit of a sensitivity analysis, and Chris, you might speak to this a little bit more, but there is quite a bit of free capacity with the traffic volumes we're at today and what we're predicting in the future. There is quite a bit of free capacity still if we were to go with the roundabouts. Now, again, as we get closer to that point and look at what is the actual alternative we do in the end, we will study those traffic numbers much closer at that point to determine how that would function with crash events, with those types of things. My personal opinion, it would provide a better throughput overall than the signal, just because the signal, you come to a complete stop. So, and then that continues to back up, takes a lot longer to clear. With the roundabout, that throughput can continue to move through fairly efficiently.
With that, sorry.
Go ahead. No,
With that in mind, why? So all that it is indicated on here as possible solutions would be the signal lights and the roundabouts. How come overpasses weren't considered in this document?
And Chris, maybe you want to speak to that?
It's kind of the vision of the community that, there's already current businesses along US 6. If we were to come through and install interchanges at all those locations, we would want to say we need to treat this like I-70 and have no access off of it, and essentially buy out those businesses and cut off access to any business along US 6. Because there's no sense in paying the additional cost of an interchange if we have accesses in between them. The interchange is great for separating those traffic movements, but if we have other accesses in between them, they kind of become an overbuild, kind of almost pointless.
What about at intersections like Spring Glen, where you have a volume of people that live out in that community and trying to cross the lanes of this traffic? Wouldn't it? I don't know. I don't like the idea of roundabouts, and I understand the problems with signals. I can see that there is a big problem with signals.
And so we did a little bit of analysis, and up there, this is the level of service for Spring Glen Road, and you can see what is currently the 2022 and then our projected planning horizon of 2050. And the least amount of delay, they're all service of level A, so excellent service, very little delay, but you have the least amount of delay at a roundabout. So they will function the best even with those higher traffic numbers. You'll have less delay, you'll spend less time at the stop sign, signal, roundabout. It's the most efficient, fastest way to get people through there.
Is that trucks, trailers, cars, tractors, farm equipment? That's all been studied? Mm-hmm. Because obviously we can say that capacity on I-15 is not there either, right? If you go at certain times, rush hour, absolutely it is. So to say that they haven't met the capacity, it works really good on paper until you're in that capacity.
Yeah, and all of these levels of service are peak hour. So we look at the traffic data and say, where's that highest level of traffic hour? And they're based on the two peaks, a morning peak and a PM peak. And so those level of service are on the peak level that we see.
And I think you've identified the right intersections. You know, living here and seeing what goes on at Spring Glen and the near misses and all the accidents before the middle lanes were put in, the barriers that are up there on Poplar that you can't make certain turns, but the merging with that new Maverick is there's gonna cause some challenges. This summer, there's gonna be wrecks. There's no doubt. When they did the overpass there on Helper, over by Swift's, I think they spent 18 million on that. They wouldn't put a stoplight in because they said that that was a better solution. And then to Casey's point, I think overpasses should be part of the solution as well. Roundabouts are cool. That's a new thing. That's great. However, I think with the kind of traffic that comes down to this community, as Casey said, around holidays, when COVID was here, all the folks that were coming out and about, our highways weren't maxed until Sunday when they were going back. And there were accidents, there were issues. Somebody gets a flat tire, deer run out in front. I mean, there's all kinds of things. So I think from my vantage point, I'd like to see at least overpasses considered as a possible viable option. I know I think they spent 18 million, like I said, on the one in Helper. But if it's your kid, your family, your neighbor that got in a wreck, 18 million.
And that is something we can consider. It was kind of that thing that if we put interchanges in, we've seen it bisect communities and have issues that way. So it felt like from our community outreach that wasn't the idea of what the community wanted, especially when we can achieve similar safety results with less impact. But that's to say, we had a small cross section of the community. So it's something that we could possibly look at in the future. There is a downside to that because we are very limited funding, and when we're looking at planning these projects out, for you to hit capacity to try and warrant or compete for funding for an interchange might push it past 2050 before funding came available for that, where it's much more feasible to get these safety improvements in sooner than that if they're a much smaller cost that provides the same amount of safety to the corridor. So there's pros and cons to it, but that's absolutely that possibility we'd look at. It's something that was looked at in an EIS back in 2005. I think they kind of steered away from that at that point because the community kind of said that and the cost of it to the benefit. So it's something we could relook at, but there is that real possibility that it would never be prioritized to the point for the cost for the benefit. And if it's not needed for capacity and only safety, we see the same safety benefits for a much cheaper alternative. So
Sure.
If that's what the community wants, we can look at it. But you need to really make sure that is what the community wants, because a lot of the public said we don't want a bisected community. We want that ability to connect, and interchanges often promote that barrier separation of that with that road in the community.
So we understand that 85% of the population is between Spanish Fork and Layton, get that, but they all come and recreate down here. The other side of that is our dads were on the mayor and city council back in the 1980s, way before you were born, and they were talking about a 4-lane road then. If they would have done a 4-lane road, it'd be tough. There's no doubt about it. The cost would have been significantly less then than now. If you talk about an overpass in 2050, it's going to be significantly more then than it will be now. So I think kind of kicking these problems down the road, there's the reality of dollars, I get that, but kicking these problems down and making like a patch job now, patch job 20 years and another patch job 15, 20 years after that, we've spent the money. So I'm not trying to shoot this down. I'm just saying I think overpasses should be at least considered in your plan.
And that is something that we can consider in the future as we look at this corridor.
Yeah, and again, Chris mentioned it, the primary issue we have with going overpasses and a full divided access controlled highway is, again, all the access points at that point go away. We can't have accesses off of interchange ramps, so you end up having to buy out all those accesses, look at a possible frontage system which increases the footprint of that entire area by a huge amount. It's a massive undertaking to go to that level. Not saying it can't happen, like Chris said, but it is a massive undertaking, buying out businesses, eliminating all the accesses, all of those things that happen with a fully divided highway.
Yeah, I don't know, we're talking a divided highway, but just like at the golf course or Spring Glen at that intersection, rather than a roundabout or stoplight, an overpass. Off of Poplars, the same thing, rather than a roundabout or stoplight, an overpass like they did at the other intersection. You can have the access and egress, regress points there as well. So that's what I'm saying. I don't want a divided highway. I don't think the locals do, nor the businesses that are along Highway 6 between Helper and Spring Glen want a divided highway.
Yeah, and in order to get the interchange ramps in, it usually takes a lot of that section. On interstates, we try and space interchanges 2 miles apart, and that's what Spring Glen and Poplar is. So that's like usually the ideal spacing, and the ramps take up, quarter to a half a mile on each side of it. So by the time you get the ramps in, you're essentially going to restrict access to that to 50% or less of what's currently there. So at that point, do we add safety issues in by allowing access after we put a bunch of money in to separate that so there's not the safety issue? And then that's what, if we put interchanges in, we're almost forced to put that no access through that whole section by the time we get those multiple interchanges in and make those ramps function.
Okay.
Yeah, no, you bring up good points. It's a tough balance.
Yeah.
I mean, we're always trying to strike that balance between looking at ways to improve safety on the highway and looking at ways to maintain business access. As we met with, Larry was on that committee and other folks who were on that committee. Maintaining the business access was one of those key elements that was really brought up and wanted to be part of the vision for that corridor, is to maintain some access. At some point in the future, that'll be more of a right-in, right-out access, as we have to look at limiting the left turns for safety reasons. But that was a huge important factor as we went through that process to try and maintain accesses to those properties. So, but yeah, I mean, this is, again, it's a study. It's not a final solution, but we're trying to strike that balance of safety improvements, keeping the traffic moving, and allowing business to come in and thrive as best as they can on that corridor.
Just one more question. In item E in the contract or the access management agreement here, it also talks about that we should try and restrict or reduce any building of any infrastructure for an additional 30 feet beyond your right of way. So it's almost like you're saying, well, we think that there's going to be a need for that, but we don't want to put in the infrastructure. That's just kind of what it feels like. So don't allow any building over here, but we're not going to put in anything until maybe way down the road.
In the planning horizon, where I don't think widening the section of road for most of it, because the current 5-lane section handles traffic for the foreseeable future. That is more just for the safety aspect of it, that we have clear zones on the road, especially high-speed roads, so if a car does lose control, that there's not obstacles for them to hit. But that's to say, that was just something that we often put in there. It's not something that is something we can change in this agreement if it's an issue.
Okay. I would like to have, just personally, the idea of overpasses as an option, and I don't know about that. It just, as I read through it, it struck me, well, they're not planning for it, but they want us to plan for an additional 30 feet in case they need it later. It's just the way it reads.
I get your point, and there are safety factors but yeah, we want our cake and we want to eat it too, right? Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying. What we want, the hardest thing we deal with is if we end up doing an interchange and we do need to chase ramps down in the future. If we do put that in as an option, at that point we don't like to have buildings built right on the right of way. UDOT has no control over that side of things. So if the county can work with developers and hold some of those more permanent improvements back off of the fence, back off of the right-of-way line a ways, it helps with that in the future, so that if we do come in with a more significant fix or capacity improvements through here, another lane at some point. Hopefully we don't have to take down buildings. Hopefully we can take out more improvements that aren't permanent. Landscaping, other things that, you know, are built around businesses to make them look good and other things. If those things can be done in that area and still have the business function, we encourage that. We know we don't have the authority. That's the county's authority as those things come in. But we certainly encourage that offset if possible, so that if improvements do come in, we aren't taking buildings and completely wiping out businesses. That's the thought behind that.
And the 30 feet more applies to these intersection locations, because you can see whether it's a roundabout or an interchange, we're going to need a lot more right of way than we have. And like Jared just said, if there's a building in that area, it's much more expensive. If we can preserve that, so if we do have to purchase it, we're not purchasing buildings or other permanent improvements, it really helps the cost of the project. So it's just a corridor preservation of, if we think we might need it, if it's possible to put some of those non-permanent improvements in those areas, it's benefit for the cost of future projects.
And don't get the tone wrong either. We appreciate that Highway 6 is being looked at, especially our community down here as well. I've asked Romney's office, Curtis's office, talk to the governor. We get pushed around to need to talk to this planning group with UDOT and all. So we're not opposing any of this. I just want to make sure, and especially for myself, but, you know, we talk about working with each other. And I think one thing that we'd ask is, you know, we can work with our planning and zoning folks and look at that additional 30-foot setbacks. But again, if you guys could just look at what I asked, and maybe Commissioner Hope's asked as well, with the overpass option as a route. Again, I get this is a study, and we appreciate it very much. It's, in my opinion, it's well overdue, but I would like to move forward on some improvements there, because we're going to have some issues. We're seeing more traffic on Highway 6 than I-70, especially truck traffic. We're getting about 13 to 1,500 trucks a day each way through that port of entry out there.
Yeah.
So, and again, anytime you want to come down for a Memorial or Labor Day or any weekend that's nice, you'll get to see what the traffic's like here.
Yeah, I agree. I grew up in Castle Dell, so I'm very familiar with this area. And Chris and I were talking before we came, and I says, avoid it on Memorial Day. Highway 6 is a nightmare on Memorial Day. So I know exactly where you're coming from. It's tough.
In the next few years, if the rail, the Uinta Basin Railway goes through, as they build out for that, have you also looked at the additional trucks that would be coming from the Uinta Basin to build out capacity for the railroad? I think they were planning, it's about a truck every 7 minutes, hauling to our different loadouts within the area. It's just additional traffic that's not been on the road currently.
Yeah, we did a complete separate study along that 191 US 40 corridor where those were going, and we included the results in here. We plugged in that additional truck traffic to these models, and the capacity wasn't an issue. I think we may need to look at some turn movements at possible locations like at Consumers Road. That may become an issue, but our preliminary analysis didn't show a big issue.
Okay.
But we did take that into consideration.
Because I think the most we're up to right now, hauling towards the rail loadouts on our side, is about 40,000 barrels a year, but they're planning to ramp up to anywhere from 90 to 100,000 barrels or more.
That's a day, not a year.
A day. Sorry,
Yeah.
a day.
Yep.
Sorry.
So yeah, we are looking at that. We're coordinating closely with the energy companies. We did take that into consideration as part of the study, because it was ongoing at that same time when they were discussing ramping up.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I might just chime in here. I've been quiet up to this point, but having sat through all of the meetings, it's obvious that UDOT had a request from Helper, who was most concerned. It's really where the problems are, to look at this. And so you agreed to do that, spent some money, but included a little bit longer stretch in there. And as that Maverick was proposed, their Helper, there's a lot of concern over that. And so as we've gone through, I don't know, we probably met for 4 or 5 months periodically. So a lot of the concerns that have been talked about were looked at, and including the extra traffic potentially coming out of the Black Hawk area properties in the Spring Glen area, and the extra oil truck traffic. And I think what I brought away from it, I guess this contract's seems a little binding on us, more so than I'm comfortable with, but we need to realize that there's an issue across that corridor for anything in Carbon County that we have to approve. As far as zone changes or conditional use permits, and Todd, if you want to add anything, jump up here, but it's good for us to be aware that at some point you have the right to do things on your highway, and we don't have a lot of say when it comes to some of that. So you've engaged us, we appreciate that, and we need to be able to tell folks who own property along there that this could change. So as you come in and do some new development here, there's some things that potentially will happen in the future that would affect you. So it may help steer them to maybe look at a different place to do their development. And you got existing businesses right now right up against Helper, Maverick, the dollar store. There's a few things right in there that are really a point of concern where people are crossing that lane right now. Maverick was told before they built that road might be divided. So they know this could happen. So the whole idea here is to try to make sure we're looking far enough ahead as a county with where our growth goes, and not committing something there that's going to require UDOT to have to come in and bend or break their rules of access on and off, and how many driveways there are. I mean, we have homes, we have businesses along there. It would affect them all. Not popular for any of them, but as we increase the traffic, we got to figure something out. So, and I guess I look at this as a good study that will help us move forward. And I on our end, I don't have any problem at all in agreeing to the idea that our departments need to keep this in mind and steer people and engage you guys real early so that we don't end up with some problems, more so than we already have up there.
Yeah, and I want to echo that, because the agreement's not meant to bind any one of the parties that sign it. It's more of a collaboration of a united front of, this is the future of the corridor. Any landowners or developers know up front what the future of the corridor is, so there's no surprises. And if there's a united front from all sides of UDOT, the county, and the city of saying, this is how we want to see this area developed, whether there's no left turn access here or not, or this is what the future of the corridor looks like. If that works with your business plan or whatever, great, come in and develop. But if it doesn't, look for some better areas that won't be so many issues or things to jump through. So it's more of a collaboration to say we're all united on this. This is a plan that the community has helped provide input into and agrees with, and then it helps shape that development. So there's not a lot of in opposition of pointing fingers of UDOT won't let us develop or the county won't let us develop. So if we're all united of saying this is what the corridor looks like, it's a benefit to everyone because the developers know what to expect before they come.
Yeah, and I apologize to Commissioner Hopes and Martinez. I didn't engage them till this come, and we didn't even look at it till kind of late here. So they need probably some time to digest it and be satisfied in their mind of all the options that are really there and what effects it will have. So for instance, the Popular Street intersection, there's not room there to do an overpass because we have businesses immediately right there that would be completely cut off because you'd have the the main lanes of everything, and that you have to divide that, so they would all be cut off. That won't work there.
Is there, and I didn't see it, is there a talk as well as of reducing the speed limit? It's already at 55, but as people have come down the canyon and followed a slow traffic and they get to the passing lanes, they all fly. And then when they get out of the canyon and find the other passing lane right on that overpass, they all fly as well. So you're going to have people, again, accelerating into a roundabout that's going to be 30 at best.
You know, and again, this is preliminary. If we go to that point of actually getting some funding, moving forward with this as a project, at that point, all those things will be on the table. Do we need to pull that speed limit back further and get people slowed down in further in advance of the roundabout? I mean, obviously you have to slow down to go through them. The similar roundabouts in Arizona, they can be passed through, I think, between 30 and 40 miles an hour. So it is still a significant drop when you're going 65 to drop to that, but it will slow traffic, and yeah, we'll look at speed limits at that point if we get to the point of actually moving to a design.
One more quick thing is the Carbon County's been identified as an emerging area for UDOT. There's several locations throughout the state. So we would happily facilitate or set up quarterly or biannual meetings for have multiple people from UDOT and the county to come and discuss, collaboration with transportation between the different kind of regional transportation aspects and discuss any of these concerns. It would be something that we would like to set up if there is appetite for it, to get all the parties involved and set something up, whether it's quarterly or biannual, that we can all get together and have a quick conversation to bring up any issues to make sure nothing gets out of hand before it has a chance to be discussed.
Absolutely. I think that'd be great.
No, I think we should do that maybe twice a year. Maybe even once a year would be enough. We don't have a...
Whatever you guys feel is appropriate. And I can reach out to you, Larry, and start getting that set up as something to plan for in the future.
Why don't we circle back with this for Commissioner Hopes and Martinez before we sign this and have a good chat. We can have our folks there as well, and so we're comfortable with it.
Okay.
Yeah, and again, thank you. The vision and then the looking at this community and this section of road, I think is what's needed at this time. So appreciate your efforts in helping us try to solve this. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
But if you'd entertain a motion, I'd make the motion that we table this and study it just a little longer before we sign it. Bring it back for approval. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I just wanted to say thank you. Kirk Thornock, I'm the Deputy Director of Region 4 and UDOT, and thank you for having us and having this discussion with us. I really do appreciate your comments. I really appreciate your thought about the fiscal dollar compared to a life. Because, and that's what we do think about. And in this corridor, whether it's an interchange, but we're also thinking about that access that is in between those two and their safety, because that is a person. It's not just a statistic to us. Sure. That is somebody's family, that's somebody's brother, wife, it means something to us. So when we come, we're looking at a global aspect of how to prevent as many crashes, injuries, fatalities as possible on these systems. So we really do care about that. So I just wanted to let you know we are concerned about that. And as you know and we know, is the mighty dollar does help make us do decisions, but we want to make the safest decision possible for all of that corridor. And, we're having these same discussions south of Moab. We have these issues on many of these high-speed routes, and they're difficult. But we do appreciate your willingness to be part of the solution and helping us understand the needs of your community. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we do have a motion.
I'll second it.
Motion is second. All in favor of tabling?
Aye.
Aye. Item is tabled. Item number 6, open sealed bids for the transport guided tour vehicle, Recreation Department.
We have one for the guided tour. Sorry, make sure that I didn't miss any. We think it's for the guided tour. It doesn't actually say on it, but it's from a fleet services business, so we assume that it is. This is from United Fleet Services. See if I can find a bid amount. This one looks like it's proposing leases for a 1-ton pickup or a Chevy SUV. The 1-ton pickup, it's $6,000 annually for the lease and $8,000 annually for the Chevy SUV.
Are we looking for a lease or a purchase?
Purchase, but so what we're looking for, just to update everybody, the rec department has a couple of vans. They're getting some mileage on them. They go up to Range Creek. They go up in the mountains. They take a lot of tourists. 2 years ago, we put an ad out on KSL to see if we could get some increases. Since we've done that, we've been booked out. So a couple of the older vans, they're getting a little rough for the road, so to speak. So we're looking at getting a couple, or looking at least getting a vehicle, a newer vehicle in the fleet there. So I would think maybe we could just look at the paperwork, what they've offered there, since that was the only bid, and make a decision at that time, either to accept or go out to rebid. That's my thought, but whatever you guys think.
I think at this point we haven't received a bid also to purchase. You're free to go out and actually solicit.
Yeah, I was just going to mention that. I think let's acknowledge the proposal that was for a lease, and we'd like to purchase, not lease. So I'd make the motion that we acknowledge the bid come in, but approve Commissioner Martinez and the staff to look for a vehicle that would fit and purchase it.
I'll second that.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Item 7, sealed bid for the 2023 Carbon County Scrap Metal Removal Road Department.
Looks like we also received just one bid for this item. This one's from Stevenson Metal Recycling. And their proposed purchase price for scrap metal is $62 per pound, or I'm sorry, for 2,000 pounds.
Were there other things that you were looking for in that bid?
That will also include the handling of all the refrigerated items at the landfill. So it's listed as for the road department here on the agenda, but it is the scrap metal pile at the landfill and the scrap metal dumpster at the road department. And so there's state regulations that govern that, and that contractor, Stevenson's, has been doing that for us in the past and fulfilling those requirements. So all of those were included in the request for quote.
I'll make a motion to acknowledge the bid and turn it over to Daniel, make sure everything is in the bid that needs to be there as far as disposal of the refrigerants and things like that. And if it's all there, to award the bid.
I'll second that.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Item number 8 is open sealed bids, the 2023 large truck and trailer tires, road department.
We have 2 bids on this item. This first one's from Southern Tire Mart. I think in the past there's been a lot of different tire sizes you're looking for. Looks like there's quite a few on here.
So commissioners, they should have included a bid sheet that was created by the road department that listed all of those tires. They had opportunity to propose a price for the tire we specified or the industry equivalent that they provide from their business. And so going through those, the warranties with those tires, and also the service provided, those are all things that we'll need to review as part of these bids.
Do you know roughly about how many different tire sizes you were looking for? I mean, more than 5, I'm sure.
Yeah, I want to say there were probably 12 specific tires listed.
Second one's from, thought I said on here. Oh yeah, Dinosaur Tire. Yeah, and again, there's quite a few different tire sizes.
There's no discussion. I'd make the motion that we acknowledge the bids from Sutherland Tire Mart and also Dinosaur Tire, and allow Daniel and staff and myself to review those and award.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Item number 9 is open sealed bids, paint striping, striping, sorry. Road department.
We have 2 bids for this item as well. This one's from Straight Stripe out of St. George. This one says it is 14.5 cents per lane foot for 1 million lane foot, for a total amount of $145,000. Second one is from Premier Striping. It's also for 1 million lane feet. The cost of 15 cents per lane foot for a total bid amount of $150,000.
I'll make a motion to acknowledge the bids, acknowledging that Premier is Straight Stripe is the low bid, and turn it over to Daniel and Commissioner Jensen for review and award.
I second that.
A motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Item number 10 is consideration and possible approval of a cooperative agreement from Utah State University Extension Services and Carbon County. If you would, just anybody wants to speak to that? Or?
I think I can do that. So this is an annual operating budget agreement. We help pay for the services that the Extension Service offers, and they have raised the total amount on one line item for $3,000, and so the last year's amount that we paid was $61,000, $1,700, and it's gone up $3,000 to $64,000 and $64,700. And so this is just our standard agreement with them that they require us to renew each year, with that slight adjustment in the dollar amount, and it has already been budgeted for that increase. So Steve Price got that to Seth last fall, and it's in our budget.
And the USU extension, some of the things they help with are the Southeastern Utah livestock, after-school programs, miscellaneous. And if some of the folks have even helped with growing and farming and fruit production, they also help with cooking services and trying to do that economically to the locals. So it's a good service in my opinion.
Absolutely. I'll make a motion that we approve the contract with, Utah State University Extension Services.
I'll second that.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Item number 11 is the request for board member applications for the Friends of Carbon and Emery Counties Children's Justice Center and Family Support Center of Carbon and Emery Counties under the new bylaws. Maybe I'll have the director come up and say a little word or two about the center, and I could talk a little bit more about the bylaws.
So the center's Friends Board we're trying to redevelop a new board under new bylaws, and hopefully be able to move forward and helping fulfill the operating expenses of the center that sometimes our contracts can't fund, either because the contracts haven't increased or because it's an item that the contracts won't fund. So
and so the need for the dollars or what you do at the center just helps families that are unplanned events and things that usually happen at off hours, and there's quite a need for it, unfortunately, but glad that you're there and your staff's there to help these families out.
Absolutely.
So typically what the Friends boards do around the state, or they raise funds and help support additional conveniences, additions that are needed, upgrades to rooms, or whatever the case is. It varies by state, and we had the state come in and tell us that there's been some overall changes that they're looking at.
Yes.
So to implement some of these changes, we've come up with help from the county that there's new bylaws. And so with these new bylaws, we want to move forward and get some good people on these boards and help with the continued fundraising that's needed to support the Children's Justice Center.
Yes.
I don't know if there's anything that you wanted to add to that, Lynn, or some of the details maybe on these.
No, I think that says what needs to be said. We want to request applications for people who are interested in serving on the Friends Board.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll hopefully get a little notice out here shortly and get some applications coming, and then the commissioners and yourself will review them and hopefully get you some good folks to help support you.
That sounds like a great plan. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
So that was more of an announcement more than anything, so we can move on. No motion. Item number 12 is consideration of possible approval of the Economic Development Service Agreement by and between the Southeastern Utah Association of Local Governments and Carbon County. I can speak to this one as well a little bit. The Association of Local Governments, we've had an ongoing agreement similar to the one with the Extension Office. Their fee has not changed. It's stayed the same as what we paid in a few years. Again, it's been budgeted. We do pay that quarterly, and I believe they send invoices to the clerk's office, and those are all taken care of. The AOG, or the Southeastern Utah Association of Local Governments, provides different services such as the food bank, assistance to the revolving loan fund to help start businesses, just a whole bunch of different things. They've upgraded water heaters that have failed for seniors that can't afford to buy them, just all different kinds of programs. And I think they've been a really good asset to our community.
I think there's a question on here that this actually is the one that we have previously had with Utah Association of Counties for some of the economic development help, and there's a couple of items in there that I would like to iron out with them before we approve this.
Okay.
I agree.
So I'll make the motion that we table this and let us work to make some alterations to this before we sign it.
I'll second that.
Okay, a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. The item has been tabled. Okay. Item 13 is Pacific Corp., the 2022 tax year discussion on duplicated accounts. Have Gillen come up and explain that a little bit?
Yeah, so on this particular situation, over the last year, the assessor's office has partnered with their counterparts in the centrally assessed unit at the Salt Lake Tax Commission to try and claw back as much ground that we can assess locally as possible. We received several hundred parcels back this year, and we still continue to anticipate to get more. In reviewing the last year, Pacific Corp identified about 16 or 17 parcels that they believed that were still being assessed centrally, that we had issued locally assessed valuations on them. After further discussion and just a little bit of research, we got that list from 16 down to 12. And we've confirmed that it still is showing up as part of their centrally assessed notices that they received. So at this time, we have got the situation where we have a double taxation, where we've issued them centrally assessed numbers and also locally assessed on the same parcels. Corrective action would be for us it totals $10,000 worth of taxes. At this point, the corrective action that would be the smoothest would be to abate those through a commission adjustment.
It's my understanding that they've already paid on one or the other side of that. Is that correct?
That's correct. So the centrally assessed side, they paid, and I understand they paid on time, and then they just decided to pursue other avenues, namely this avenue to address the locally assessed. They did have 4 others that could not be found on their centrally assessed side, and so they went ahead and paid those. And we're working with centrally assessed to eliminate these vacant land holdings from their listings. The challenge that we ran into was that because we found them on the centrally assessed, there's no way to break it down. They do a unitary approach, which is just based on their income, not a summation of all their parts. So if it's there, we don't know how much it contributes to it, but if it's there, it's considered to be included. So we've now asked them to update that and to eliminate it from their records so that next year, these locally assessed parcels shouldn't have any problems going out.
I think it's fair that we is it abate or what's the correct?
It's a commission adjustment. I don't know what it really falls under, but it's under the abatement screen on this. So commission adjustment would be, I would issue the letter to Kay, and then she would, well, I think in this one it would be most appropriate. I'll bring the letter to you to sign and then deliver it to Kay, and then she would make that adjustment.
I'll make the motion that we approve the adjustments for these properties.
And the total was $10,177.37 across those 12 parcels.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Motion to